Mayor Allen, it is now 6:30. You may start the meeting when you're ready.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of August 3, 2022 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Be advised that meetings of council are still being held electronically. Residents are provided with the options to watch or listen to council meetings. You can watch the meeting live on the township's website, www.springwater.ca/live, or listen to the meeting live from a telephone by calling 647-558-0588 and using the ID 863-5324-0626. This option is available only during the meeting. And for those who are unable to watch the live stream, you're able to review the meeting at your convenience by watching the video on the township's YouTube channel. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening and what we're dealing with? Seeing none, I'll move on to question period. Members of the public can ask questions of council or make comments regarding an item on the agenda. And these questions can be submitted in writing to the clerk by noon on the day of the meeting, or you can provide information and come online and pose your question in the electronic meeting during question period. Further details of the process for submitting questions is contained on the agenda. You're invited to read that. Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any submissions received for this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There have been no submissions received.
Thank you. Moving on to minutes 5.1 in the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes of council? Councillor Maude Chapman, Councillor Cabral. There are 6 minutes included. Any questions or comments with respect to these? These are the minutes of the special meeting of council July 5th, special meeting of council July 6th, minutes of special meeting of council closed session July 6th, minutes of the regular meeting of council on July 6th, July 25th, and minutes of the special meeting of council closed session of July 25th, 2022. All those in favor? That is carried. 5.4 minutes of the boards and committees and organizations. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Maude Chapman, Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the boards, committees, and other organizations listed herein be received as information. That being the minutes of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee of July 21, 2022. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to action report option items. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Maude Chapman. We'll now turn it over to Director Radigan to guide us through this action item.
Thank you, Mayor Allen and members of council. Staff prepared a presentation at council at the special meeting of council on July 5th, 2022 regarding compensation and expenses for elected officials. As a result of that meeting, staff were directed to report back on a number of items, including per diems for committee meetings, limitations and processes of the Sunlight Healthcare spending account compared to the Honeybee Healthcare spending account, guidelines and clarification with regards to the discretionary fund policy, and potential severance packages for members of council. Now, reviewing each one of these at a high level, we'll start with per diems. Staff were requested to report back to council regarding potential per diems for committee meetings, in addition to the council-based compensation. Comparative municipalities were surveyed, and the responses received varied by municipality in terms of the amount of per diem provided, if any. Only 3 of the 10 municipalities actually provide per diems for committee meetings. In addition to that, as a result of a 2006 decision made by council, it would appear an annual salary remuneration format was adopted to include both an honorarium as well as a per diem amount. Therefore, council's base salary for the current term of council, as well as future terms of council, has already taken a per diem value into consideration. Secondly, staff were requested to report back to council regarding the limitations and processes of the healthcare spending account providers, which include Sun Life and Honeybee. The data collected by staff did not indicate any limitations of the Sun Life healthcare spending account compared to that of the Honeybee healthcare spending account. Staff believe both providers operate in a similar manner in terms of providing coverage for medical, hospital, and dental expenses that are eligible under the Income Tax Act. Thirdly, staff were requested to provide a report outlining potential guidelines and clarification to the discretionary funds policy for council consideration. Staff have provided a draft policy outlining council discretionary fund guidelines, while also outlining the purpose and intent of this fund, which can be found as Appendix C to this report. The overall purpose of these funds is to provide members of council with resources to assist them in fulfilling their roles and responsibilities as elected officials. And lastly, staff were directed to report back to council outlining potential severance packages for members of council. Based on the comparative municipalities surveyed, 9 of the 10 municipalities reported no severance packages were provided to elected officials, and 1 did not actually provide a response. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, before we get into discussion, Clerk Ainsworth, how do you recommend we proceed through these recommendations individually or?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So I would recommend the same, a similar process to the July 5th meeting. So starting with the per diems for committee meetings, seeking council discussion and direction on that specifically. Should a member of council wish to see a change to the current policy, they would need to table an amendment to the motion to outline what they would like to see. If there are no changes required or recommended, then I would insert remain status quo into the main motion and then go through each of the 4 sections piece by piece that way.
Okay, okay, starting with per diems for committee meetings, open it up to discussion, comment. Okay, so there's no comments. So Clerk Ainsworth, in that situation, it would be status quo.
Correct.
Moving on to implementation of the Sun Life healthcare spending account. Comments, questions? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just have a question between the Sun Life, the amount I'm forget from the last time. What's the difference between the 3,000 and 2,600?
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Ma Chapman. The main difference is the amount of coverage you would receive. There is an equivalent amount that we were able to, I guess you could say, procure from them. So we do have 2,600 that could be potentially provided from Sun Life or Honeybee, and we do provide the comparable dollar value. They are similar and I would say equivalent in nature, but the costs have been provided in the chart that's attached to the report.
Councillor Cabral. I like your sign, Councillor Cabral.
I've been looking for the other one, Mayor Allen, hasn't turned up, and I think throwing my hand up, it's difficult to see. I was wondering if we could bring up page 7 of 11 here.
Okay,
The report.
that's the charts.
Yeah,
The chart.
chart at the page of at the top of page 7, please.
Clerk Ainsworth, are you able to bring that up? Yeah, you're working on that. Thanks.
I guess till it comes up, Mayor Allen, I just really want a bit of clarification here. And the reason I'm asking for that is looking at these on the left for the amount of coverage we're being provided and then the total annual cost. I'm kind of wondering how it works. It looks like Honeybee account at the bottom is $2,600, and I guess the amount in pocket or the cost is $20,969. And the Sun Life HSA, a second from the top, is for $2,600, and it's $21,463. So for the same equal coverage, Sun Life is more money, and I believe it was more money at the very beginning. Now, when we look at the very top one there, there's no comparable being provided for Honeybee. So I would be curious to know what the cost for $3,000 of coverage would be for the Honeybee folks, because they tend to be on the they tend to be cheaper, and they seem to provide the same amount of service. And I know that there's been maybe some growing pains, but that seems to be seems to slant things towards Sun Life when maybe that shouldn't necessarily be the case. All of these figures here for all of the amounts that the coverage would be provided for should be shown for both Sun Life and Honeybee, so that council can really have a better understanding of what is being provided for the amount of money that is being spent for each level of coverage. So I guess that would.
Okay, let me pause there. Director Radigan, do you have the figure for Honeybee for 3,000 a level?
Thank you, Marilyn. I unfortunately do not at this very moment. I do believe Manager DeVried is on the call. Based on the discussion that took place at the July 5th special meeting of council, staff were not directed to receive or look for additional information as it pertained to Honeybee. We were directed to proceed with Sun Life, and that would be one of the reasons why we did come forward and provide more of the limitations and processes as compared to any additional costing.
Yes, follow on.
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor Allen. And I do agree that that was the case, but it certainly seemed at the time that, and I hate to say it, that the chart seems to indicate that Sun Life is providing more coverage at $3,000, and I think it's a bit of a disservice when we only got the price for Sun Life for $3,000 at $24,753. When we didn't get it for Honeybee, that might have made a significant difference in which way maybe council might have decided to go. Could you tell me, Director Radigan, what the difference is? I don't have my calculator handy, but for the 2,600 to 2,600, what's the difference in amounts that would be the cost amount for that coverage between Sun Life and Honeybee? With Honeybee being $20,969 and Sun Life being $21,453 for the same coverage.
969. It looks like it's $484. Director Radigan.
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you, that is correct. I can only assume that a comparable to the 3,000 would be slightly under your $24,000. I don't believe it would be material in nature. I do believe you would be looking at anywhere from 23 to 24,000 still.
But am I right in saying, Director Radigan and maybe CEO Schmidt, that there were, Councillor Cabral refers to them as growing pains, but there were considerable administrative challenges in dealing with Honeybee that necessitated, again, considerable time of our staff to help them deal with otherwise what they were paying them to be able to deal with. So start with you, Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That is correct. Staff have encountered several issues in terms of administering the account. We have had to use up internal resources in terms of reconciling the account. We've had several issues with staff turnover on their end as well. So in each case, we are spending a significant amount of time reconciling. And We don't believe we would have similar issues or concerns with Sun Life, as they are a larger corporation, and I do believe we deal with them in other aspects as well.
Mhm.
Clarification, we are presently dealing with Honeybee at a what level? 3,000? Remind me.
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you, $2,600.
2,600. Okay.
The actual amount is 3,000. However, the remaining $400 is actually a cost to administer the funds as well.
And would but Sun Life would not have a similar administration cost?
I believe they would. However, it is already included in that cost that you see before you.
Okay. Follow on, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Marilyn. I just want to clarify that, just so we're on the same page. The $2,600 or the $3,000 that was available prior to council, to get the $2,600 benefit, Sun Life charges $484 more at the end of the year. There was a difference, and there was a difference in the amount of coverage that was available to each council member at the time too. That was one of the reasons why I think Honeybee went forward. I guess what I'm saying here, Mayor Allen, and I will admit, I am the one who actually said, you know, it would be nice to get the $3,000. It's a round figure. But I'm just looking at it now, thinking to myself, the chart's kind of skewed to send us towards Sun Life. And that's what I'm trying to bring forward is, in order for it to be a fair chart, all of the amounts should have had an equal comparator. And the other thing was, it was supposed to show us what the differences would be between Honeybee and Sun Life. And that was the key part that was going to, I think, play into the decision-making process, was whether or not Sun Life would be providing basically the exact same levels of service, levels of coverage as Honeybee would. And or are there certain limitations? Those were the kind of questions that came up, and they weren't able to be answered at the time. So in here it says what's eligible and what's not, but it doesn't really define the differences between Honeybee and Sun Life. And that's really, I think, what I, as a member who would be basically benefiting from this coverage, would like to know.
Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. The list was provided in terms of Sun Life, as council members are currently being provided services from Honeybee. So I believe what was provided was perhaps not a comparison, however, maybe a high level that may provide some sort of clarification in terms of what was available to you compared to what you already are receiving through Honeybee. Staff don't believe that there are large variances. The processes are quite similar in terms of what is eligible. If there is something specific, we could definitely go back and request that. But what's been provided is quite similar to what is currently being provided through Honeybee.
Follow on.
Follow on, go ahead.
Yes, my understanding, Director Radigan, through Mayor Allen, Director Radigan, is with Honeybee, as long as it meets the criteria set out by the Canada Revenue Agency for tax deductible medical expenses, they can be forwarded. And from my experience, they've done exactly that. My concern would be that if a member needed corrective lenses, would there be a limit with Sun Life? Because there is no real limit with Honeybee. So someone could theoretically get a pair of glasses for $700 if they needed them, and they would be reimbursed for them. Now, going to Sun Life, would it mean that someone would want to go to their health account and get the $700 pair of glasses only to find out that there was a limitation of $500? These are the kind of things that I was most interested in finding out. Even for orthotics, all of the things that normal, that's one of the benefits of a health spending account, is that it's not defined by specific limitations on how much you can spend. Whereas in insurance, health insurance policy does define those limitations. So that would really be my big question here. Whether we're with Sun Life or Honeybee is to make sure that the health spending accounts are actually in a position to be operating in the same fashion with basically the same limitations and same processes. So that's my concern.
Okay, Director Radigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. You are absolutely correct in terms of the benefits of a healthcare spending account is there are no limitations, and I am of the understanding it is similar to that of Honeybee. There would not be any limitations. You do have up to the amount that council sees fit to proceed, but that is the idea of the healthcare spending account, that there are no specific limitations.
Okay, other councillors' thoughts on this topic? Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Marilyn. And just one other question. If we do decide to go to Sun Life, our township will notify Honeybee as of October 31st, but the deadline would be till up to December 31st, and then we'd start Sun Life January 1st, I believe. That's what I read.
Yeah, Director Radigan.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, is there any desire then to go ahead with any one of these levels then that we can move on from this? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And through you, I don't know whether or not Manager DeVried has managed to find out what the difference in cost would be to the township itself if Honeybee was providing the $3,000 level.
Manager DeVried, were you successful?
Through your worship to Councillor Cabral, I would have to reach out to Honeybee to confirm the cost, as there is additional, there's the subscription fee that we pay with Honeybee per month per member, but then the other additional between the 2,600 and the 3,000 is covered for the subscription, the taxes on the subscriptions and the taxes on any claim. So we'd have to reach out to Honeybee to see what the cost difference would be if we were to increase it to a $3,000.
Thank you, Mayor Allen.
Yes.
The administrative fee for Honeybee is $10 per member per month. That's not going to change. I don't believe it has any bearing on the amount of coverage at all. So whatever we're paying right now for Honeybee, I would suggest that is exactly what we're paying for the $3,000 level, as far as the administrative fee would be considered on top of, as you say, the HST in respect of that as well.
Okay, Manager DeVried, does that sound reasonable?
There is the HST and the subscription cost, as Councillor Cabral indicated, which is the $10, but there would also be, there's also taxes, there's premium taxes and an 8% RST on certain claim taxes as well that we would have to account for. So I wouldn't be able to, I don't off the top of my head know how much the difference would be between moving from a $26,000 to $3,000.
Okay, these are going to be presented in the September 7th meeting, regular meeting of council for finalization. Is it the will of council to go ahead and make a decision with respect to this tonight, given the comments Councillor Cabral has raised, or is it a possibility to get this further information for our September 7th meeting? Direct council, first of all, any comments with respect to that? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a comment. I understand from staff that it's been difficult. I guess the best way for me to phrase this would be to say it's a benefit to the members of council. Okay, that's quite clear. And the amount of the benefit that's going to be available for the medical benefit to council members is going to apparently be the same, whether it's Honeybee or Sun Life. So what it really boils down to at the end of the day is there going to be a significant savings to the township in staying with Honeybee? Or is it better to go with Sun Life in the hopes that they won't encounter, any kind of difficulty or hours spent by staff? So really, that's the juncture.
That's right. That's right. And CEO Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to maybe chime in here, I would suggest that the $484 that you are saving on paper, we've probably paid that with staff time, having to deal with some of the reconciliation administrative matters. So although on paper it appears we're saving, I would suggest that that's not necessarily true, that we are spending staff time, and it was probably much more than $500, which is suggested in the report.
Okay.
One final follow-on, Mayor Allen, in regards to the information, basically biological health information of members of council. If moving to Sun Life, would that information be available to staff within the corporation? And or is that information already available to staff while we're using Honeybee? That's something that I wouldn't necessarily be aware of. So if I could just get clarification on that, I'd appreciate it.
Director Radigan or Manager DeVried? Sorry, Manager DeVried would probably answer that better. Go ahead, Manager DeVried.
Mayor Allen, through to Council Cabral. I'm sorry, my internet was a little bit fuzzy, so I missed the part about the first part of the question. What?
Yeah, basically in a nutshell, Manager DeVried, I just was curious to know whether using Honeybee is better from a personal medical information standpoint, or would staff have more access to personal medical information from council members if we went to Sun Life, or would it basically be status quo? That would be the last question.
Thank you, Mayor. Through Mayor Allen to Council Cabral. Thank you for clarifying that, but we would not have access to that personal medical information. Right now, we do see kind of we don't see what the claims have been for. We would just kind of see the claims dollar amounts coming in that we are manually tracking as well, because through Honeybee, we're not able to pull any reports on that. So we do manually track the claims each month, which we provide to finance to ensure that we are able to properly calculate it and carry forward for the next year.
Thank you.
Okay. Then basically to move from this, which councillors would be in favor of implementation of Sun Life healthcare spending account, presumably at the 3,000 level? Can we have a yes to that, just to show, so that we can deal with this? Oh, Clerk Ainsworth is checking me up on this. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. We would need somebody to put an amendment on the table.
Well, that was a subtle hint. So we can look at each other here until somebody wants to. Oh, Councillor Cabral.
At the end of the day, if it's a status quo and it's a quid pro quo between the two of them, and if it's going to be easier for staff, as much as I have not had any problems with Honeybee whatsoever, and I do must admit I like the process that we use with them. They're not a huge company, but I would say that I would be fine once again going to Sun Life. So I'm happy to say that I would propose that we move with Sun Life going forward for council.
Thank you. Seconder for that. Councillor Maud Chapman. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. So the direction on July 5th was to give consideration to Sun Life. So I would just word the amendment to reaffirm council's decision regarding Sun Life based on the $3,000 limit, I believe was the decision back on July 5th.
Okay. And we don't have to vote on this at this point because we're voting on the whole thing at the end. Is that correct? Clerk Ainsworth?
Mayor Allen, it would be easier for the minutes if there would be a vote.
Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And next, the discretionary funds, comments, questions? Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. As everybody is aware that the CAO asked us all to provide input, and I took my time and provided what I thought was constructive ideas. I thought they would be shared with all of council so we knew what everybody else was thinking. But the bottom line is, I think what we have here is a reasonably good recommendation that it does resolve some of the questions that we had or the stuff that was confusing before. What I do like about it is that it's taken the onus, if you like, off of staff to make a determination as to what can be approved and what can't be approved. I believe the way it was before, it put staff in a conflict possibly with members of council. So I believe that's been corrected. I'm not sure I like the comment in there that, well, it's not going to impact me, but where it says that any need for approvals would be done by the mayor. I think that should be a council thing, not a mayor. But my question through you to the CAO is that one of my suggestions was at the end of the year, when we do our audit, the financial auditor also take a look at the discretionary fund and what's been spent and who did what. I guess my question is that going to happen, or is that not one of the plans going forward?
Okay, I'll go to CAO Schmidt first, and then if Director Radigan wants to add on, welcome to do so. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hanna. So Councillor Hanna, just on the one comment with regards to the auditors, that is something that definitely we can approach the auditors on and ensure that they do a review, if you will, of discretionary funds. Again, they look at materiality and they'll determine whether or not it's material. But if we want specifically them to review these, I think Director Radigan would need to have a conversation with the auditors just to see if there's any additional cost impact to the township for them to do so. Hopefully not, but I'll leave it.
Follow on, Councillor Hanna.
Yeah, follow up. So in order to make sure that happens, do we need a direction from council to add that to this report to make sure it happens, or is the rest of council satisfied that it will take place?
CAO Schmidt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hanna. Again, we can have Director Radigan speak to the auditors, and they'll be planning their scope of the audit likely very soon here. And that's something that definitely she can have a discussion with. And should there be a financial impact to the township, she can report back to council accordingly. Leave it at that.
I think that handles it sufficiently, given that council's agrees to this direction to expand the audit review. CAO Schmidt.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, and just further to Councillor Hanna's comment about the approval. Councillor Hanna, the only reason why staff are recommending that the expenses be approved by the mayor, because that's similar to all of your other expenses that are submitted on a monthly, bi-monthly or annual basis. They do go through approval through the mayor, so that this would be similar. So to your point, if there was any discrepancy, then that would come to council for final approval through council, all of council.
Councillor Cabral.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess a couple of comments. One is I really think that this particular policy should have some kind of basically an example of an ethical decision-making tool. And the only reason I say that is a tool like that is very helpful to someone who is unsure themselves. I can see how the carryover would happen as far as the mayor's approval, but I would suggest that these particular discretionary expenses, I think that since they're going to be posted publicly, that if a member felt that they had a discretionary expense that was valid, that they could send it in, and it could go to each member of council as well as being publicized on the website, because it's kind of like reimbursement's going to be denied or approved beforehand. But if that were the case, any council member at that time who had a question about the expense be able to voice their objection, and then it would be able to come back before council for a final determination. I also think it should be clearly stated in the policy that if a member does submit a discretionary expense, which is later on found to be outside the realm of what would be considered an expense, and the reimbursement was denied, that the member understand at the very beginning that if a denial does take place, that they're agreeing to reimburse the township for that expense as well. And that kind of plays into, and I hate to say it, where the mayor has an expense, a discretionary expense, and who's going to approve that? So I just kind of see it more as, since the council as a whole is going to determine the outcome of questionable discretionary expense, maybe council should just be privy at the very beginning. And if they have any questions about an expense, they can ask that it come before council for an open session meeting. So those are my thoughts on that, just the two items.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hannah, Councillor Cabral. Councillor Cabral, under the approval of expenses section of Appendix C, in the first paragraph, it does state, should a member of council be uncertain as to whether the expense is considered eligible, they should consider seeking pre-approval from the mayor and/or council prior to incurring the expense. So there is some wording in there that might assist with what you're suggesting. So hopefully that's amenable to members of council.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Cabral.
Yeah, thank you. That does kind of put it the ability to ask, but I'll be quite honest with you. I don't want to be put in a position of making a decision. If I was unsure and I went through the ethical decision-making tool, I still felt that it was okay to proceed. Reaching out to other council members sometimes might not be the appetite for some members of council to do. Who are you going to reach out to? Which particular council member? Which particular staff member? If you've got to do that, chances are you shouldn't be putting in that discretionary expense.
So with the policy as it's stated now, what are you recommending, Councillor Cabral? You're muted now.
Members of council are all adults, and as adults, if they're going to put in an expense out of the discretionary fund, what I'm suggesting is when they do that and they submit their paperwork, that the paperwork go to each member of council, and that if a member of council at that time, because all of us would know, as well as the public, because it's going to be put on the public website for accountability and transparency, when that expense document goes to all members of council, if a member of council questions it, then that particular expense might come back before council, and council as a whole is the one that's going to make the final decision on it anyhow. So just seems a bit redundant to do it through one person and then other people are not privy to it. And then the other side of the coin is, as I said, who's approving the mayor's discretionary expenses? So even the mayor could do the same process. And if anyone had a question or a concern about it, they'd be in a position to move it forward to a council meeting as well. So that was my only thought on that.
It just seems to me like a logistical, time-consuming nightmare to have that much processing over a golf fee to go to another municipalities. As long as you're abiding by the policy that has been put forward, which is a result of us having input into the creation of that policy and the discretionary funds. I think, submitting each expense and distributing it to council and having questions come back on a item by item basis is a bit of a logistical nightmare, but
Not suggesting that.
I can't hear you, Councillor Cabral. You're not coming through.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep, sorry. No, I wasn't suggesting a logistical nightmare. If it's going to be provided digitally to the mayor, it could be provided digitally to all members of council. And members of council should if not have questions and itemize it, but hey, this doesn't seem right to me. There's no way that this should have been put in as a discretionary expense. Then they should be able to have the opportunity to do that. That was my only point. Not that we're going to review it and ask questions on it. If it's a legitimate expense, I'm sure we'd all agree that that was the case. But if it's way out in left field, I'm sure the majority of council is going to turn around and say this is not an expense that should have been put through.
Any other thoughts, Deputy Mayor Coughlin? Deputy Mayor Coughlin, she might have frozen. No, there we go. Deputy Mayor?
Am I back now? Thank you, Marilyn. Is there not opportunity then to have the procedure amended to have quarterly reporting so that it does give all members of council the ability to question or to bring things forward so that the process on an annual basis isn't cumbersome, but still provides an opportunity for all expenses to be reported to all of council?
I think that would be quite possible. Record keeping could create that. Director Radigan?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Allen, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I do believe the draft policy does state that it would be posted on our website on a quarterly basis. We could definitely provide it to members of council through a CIP if requested, or even through information report if that would be your wish.
Follow on?
I apologize. I'm missing things here and there. It wasn't that it would go to, sorry, the intent was that it would come to a meeting of council. So whether that's through the CIP, I would prefer that it would go directly to council as information, and then that way all of council is aware.
Okay, that could happen, certainly. Other thoughts? Okay, so on this item, Clerk Ainsworth, given what we've discussed, how can we move on from this item?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As this would not be status quo, it's a new process. I have drafted an amendment regarding so that council hereby approve the draft policy generally outlined in Appendix C to the report. And if council would like to see that last section amended so that it the report be added to the agenda versus strictly on the website, I would add that into the motion as well.
Yes, please, on a quarterly basis. Is that what, yeah. Okay, all those in favor of it as amended? Oh, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. We would need a mover and seconder, please.
Sorry. Do we have a mover and seconder for this amendment? Okay, we got two requests to speak. Councillor Cabral, then Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Is that the only amendment that's going to be going forward out of this discussion?
I can't hear you. What you're saying?
Will that be the only amendment that is going to be going forward as a result of this discussion?
Unless you'd like to add to that amendment with a friendly addition.
Well, I would like to see an ethical decision-making tool included in policy.
And that ethical decision-making tool would consist of what?
Well, there's several of them out there. I believe I provided actually a couple of them to CAO Schmidt, but he's more than welcome to select one that he thinks is appropriate for members to utilize and refer to if they're having any difficulties making a decision on whether or not they should be submitting an expense for discretionary expense.
Okay, I think we better split these up then. Clerk Ainsworth, how can we split these both up then to address these two ideas as amendments?
Through you, Mayor Allen. The first motion can deal with my apologies, should be Councillor Cabral's request to add the ethical standard. And then the second amendment would be to approve the policy in addition to the quarterly reporting.
Okay, so let's clarify again then what the ethical standard consists of.
Are you asking me, Mayor Allen?
Yeah, propose something, please.
Sure, I'm happy with the book, The Bell and the Candle.
Explain that, please.
Well, when you're making a decision, you reference to see if there's any legal criteria that has to be met or any legal obligations you have to adhere to, or if you're breaking any legal legislation. Candle is whether your decision is going to stand by the light of day. Basically, you know, when it's put out there and you've made this decision, how are other members going to feel? How's the public going to feel? Are they going to be in agreement with the decision you made, that you made the right decision? And the bell is basically to tell you that do any alarm bells go off in your head that this is not an appropriate decision to be making? So that's how simple it is. But it kind of takes you through the steps. And if you go through those 3 steps based on the decision that you're going to make, you'll come pretty close at the end, knowing whether or not you should move forward or whether or not you're gonna find yourself in a situation where it's not going to turn out so well. So it's not a lengthy process, but I think we're developing a policy that people are supposed to be referring to. I certainly don't see how it would hurt to include that in there. Many people are not familiar with ethical decision-making models.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, then Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Marilyn. I guess I'm curious as to how that would be included, that book. But what Councillor Cabral has just stated sounds very similar to the oath of office, which each member of council takes before becoming a member of council. I think that all the decisions that we make require a code of ethics, and this shouldn't be any different. My proposal to have the quarterly reporting move forward was basically a compromise in that I don't see adding a reading of a book is going to, if members of council are unsure, there are already avenues to take. I guess I just don't understand the amendment.
With all due respect, Deputy Mayor Collins.
Just a minute, Councillor Cabral. Councillor Cabral, wait a second, please. Councillor Moore is next.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was thinking somewhat similarly that our code of conduct that we have already outlines what is acceptable behaviors and acceptable decisions. Following that, we shouldn't really be acting outside of our own code of ethics and our code of conduct. So I'm in agreement that I'm not sure that I need to follow a book. I think I have, of course, the standards that are already set out for us. So with all due respect, Councillor Cabral, I think we could go ahead with the quarterly reporting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Councillor Cabral, you're recognized. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Thank you. I asked for the following. I think there's a misunderstanding here. There is no book. The book actually could refer to the code of conduct. The book can refer to the municipal act. The book could refer to any piece of legislation, rule, or bylaw that you have to follow or adhere to. But that's what you have to look at before you start making the decision. Once again, the light, it's not necessarily the light. It's basically that everybody would be able to see what was going on, kind of like the light of day just shows everything that's hiding in the darkness. So they're not physical things. They are, I don't know.
Okay, Councillor Cabral,
if not, I will withdraw, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So Clerk Ainsworth, we're dealing with the quarterly reporting. Please reread that amendment.
The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows. Regarding discretionary funds, that council hereby approve the draft policy generally outlined in Appendix C to the report, and that the policy be amended to have the quarterly report be added to a council agenda.
Okay, all those in favor of that amendment? Go ahead and speak, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marilyn. I would just be requesting a seconder for the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Ma Chapman, all those in favor? That is carried. So we don't have to go back to the main motion with this. That's captured in the end with the whole thing, Clerk Ainsworth?
That is correct, yes.
Moving on to item 4, severance packages. Any comments with respect to this? So therefore, it's status quo, correct, Clerk Ainsworth? Councillor Cabral wants to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. I thought we had a discussion that these were actually moving forward. I do want to speak to this. I just wanted to say that I think it's just something for consideration. I know none of our comparators use it, but sometimes it's one particular municipality that actually moves something forward and everybody else follows along. As far as the Employment Standards Act, we as members are not terminated. So yes, we're not entitled to a severance package under that piece of legislation. We also don't pay into EI. So when we don't get reelected or decide not to come back, there is no EI available to us either. So the reason that I brought this forward is because some other municipalities do have this in place. And I'm just kind of curious to know, we talked about populations, but I don't see how that would be relevant to what the severance allowance consists of, because every municipality basically is the same. We all make a little bit different. Benefit package is a little bit different. So that was one of the reasons why I put it forward. I did want to ask why or whether or not Director Radigan did not receive the one from Newmarket, only because the report speaks to population of Oshawa is about 160,000 and Mississauga about 721,000. Newmarket has a single page severance allowance, basically in keeping with the other two municipalities, and their population is roughly 87,000. So I was just wondering about that, and of course, open it up to discussion for any other members of council that might like to speak to it.
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. No, I did not receive one from Newmarket, unfortunately. The idea was to focus more on our comparator municipalities in terms of what is the best practice in our surrounding municipalities. It was a similar approach that was taken for the council compensation review as well as the staff compensation review. So the idea was to ensure that we were comparing to similar or like municipalities, so that way we could benchmark against them as well. Although we are not similar to, I believe we have Mississauga as well as Oshawa within the report. Their populations are quite large compared to our township. And so it is difficult to make comparisons, whether it be for benefit packages or any other type of additional retirement packages. So I think from a staffing perspective, we chose to stay away from it, just in terms of ensuring there was consistency across the board when we were comparing all other aspects of a compensation or expense policy.
Follow on.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm just curious, if all the municipalities within Simcoe County, which are our comparators, are doing exactly the same thing as us, how does any new policies take effect? And that's something that maybe we need to consider, is that you're absolutely right. One municipality may very well introduce a package similar to this, and then when it comes time for us to compare ourselves to these other municipalities, one of them may have this package then. So somebody usually has to take the first step. So that's why I brought it forward, in case this council maybe had an appetite to move it forward in the future.
Okay, so are you proposing that by way of amendment, Councillor Cabral?
No, I am not, Mayor Allen. I spoke about it before. I just wanted council to be aware that other municipalities do provide this. I don't have the mechanisms that, as a matter of fact, I will propose, Mayor Allen, I will propose that staff reach out to all the municipalities in Ontario and try and identify which municipalities do provide severance allowance, because I just happened across those, and I'm sure it's a lot more difficult for a regular person just kind of surfing the web to come across them than it would be if staff were able to reach out to the municipalities and get a feeling for if this is a new trend or whether or not this is something that is isolated to just a handful of municipalities. So yes, I would ask that that be done, and then staff come back with that information, and a decision on this maybe be made at the September meeting.
Director Radigan, what's the work and time involvement in doing that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you, Councillor Cabral. There are 444 municipalities within Ontario. We could definitely reach out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to see if they have some type of database that would provide that information, but I don't believe I would be able to provide an accurate response of all 444 municipalities by September 7th. I just don't believe that I would receive responses by then, just in terms of summer vacations. It's a common time for most municipalities to take time away, but I could definitely reach out to our representative at the municipal sector and see if there is something that can be provided.
Councillor Cabral?
Hello, and thank you, Mayor Allen. Just on that point, the staff report that was provided to us tonight, one of the municipalities didn't bother getting back in touch with us, and that's certainly no fault of staffs. That's at the other end. I would suggest that to reach out and ask them, and if somebody's sitting there and it's already in the document form and they can send it back or give you an answer, that would be wonderful. If the Ministry of Municipal Housing and Affairs has that kind of information, that would be great too. I don't know if a township has to provide those documents to any particular housing stream.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I was just wondering if this could be moved to an item for future consideration, so that it seems like a bit of a larger project to reach out to that many municipalities, that maybe they could work on it over time and not be under constraint for September. Would you be willing to maybe look at that?
Well, you know, I'm not.
Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, I'm not pushing this myself. Like I said, I wanted to bring it to the attention of council. Whether it's 10 or whether it's 100, there are municipalities out there that are providing this to their council members. And we're talking about remuneration. So it seemed like an appropriate time to bring it up, and that's what I did. If there's no appetite on it, Mayor Allen, there's no point in me putting a motion forward.
Councillor Mott Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just wondering, I know maybe some municipalities will give a severance, but council is part-time, so I don't know if part-time normally gets severance or not, whether you're a council or staff. Do staff get severance if they're part-time?
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I will actually defer that question to either CAO Schmidt or Manager Reid.
Manager DeVries, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through Mayor Allen to Councillor Mott Chapman, yes, under the Employment Standards Act, even part-time staff would be eligible for severance if they meet kind of those ESA minimums. So yes, we would provide severance to any part-time staff who were potentially terminated. Individuals leaving on their own accord do not receive severance from the township.
Okay, Councillor Cabral had a motion that he put forward. Is there a seconder for his amendment? Or are you withdrawing it, Councillor Cabral?
Trying it, Mayor Allen.
You withdrawing it? Okay. So we are dealing with severance packages at status quo. So Clerk Ainsworth, can you read the full motion recommendation, please?
The main motion as amended would read that the report from the Director of Finance regarding the council compensation 2022 to 2026 term of council update dated August 3rd, 2022 be received, and that council provide direction with respect to council expense policy A09 COU as follows. Per diems for committee meetings remain status quo. Implementation of Sun Life Healthcare spending account, that council hereby direct that the council member healthcare spending account be provided through Sun Life as of January 1st, 2023 with a limit of $3,000. Discretionary funds, that council hereby approve the draft policy generally outlined at Appendix C to the report, and that the policy be amended to have the quarterly report be added to a council agenda. Severance packages remain status quo, and that an amendment to the council expense policy A09 COU for the 2022-2026 term of council reflecting the above changes be presented for consideration at the September 7th regular meeting of council.
Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 6.2, Springwater Swing Golf Tournament 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cabral, and I turn to Manager Dean to lead this over and above the report that she gave us, please. Don't look like Manager Dean.
Go ahead,
but
CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. Sorry, I was just going to speak on behalf of Brianna Dean, Manager Dean. She's unfortunately not able to attend this evening's meeting due to a family matter she's dealing with. So I believe General Manager Ramdale may be able to assist, and or myself with some of the reports that are on the agenda this evening. So
good. All right. So council, the report reviewed historically what had been allocated in 2020 and 2019. Any thoughts to open up discussion with respect to this? Councillor Ritchie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a few months ago, we had Dr. Goluski and his associate Shannon Lauren with the physician recruitment from GBGH, Georgian Bay General Hospital, Midland. In the past, we've always given to the Barrie physician recruitment and to the Midland physician recruitment. Over the last few years, we have not given to the Midland physician recruitment, yet we've given to the Barrie physician recruitment. And there's a large portion that goes to Barrie, and up here in the north, there's a large portion that goes to Midland. And I would like to put back the amount, and I don't know what the amount is. It could be 2,500 or three. I stand to be corrected. I'd like to get that back to the Midland physician recruitment in their drive, and they've been very successful too in recruiting new doctors for the Midland Hospital. Again, there's still a lot of people up here that go to the Midland Hospital. So last few years we've had COVID, our funds got low, and I know we always reached out and gave to Barrie. And so I would like to place that back, put Midland back on the map in providing funds to them.
Okay. I'll go to CAO Schmidt, who's popped up to comment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you to Councillor Ritchie and members of council. So what's happened in the past is that there has been money set aside for both Barrie physician recruitment and the Midland. Sorry, I can't recall the actual name, but it's the Midland area physician recruitment. Sorry. So I believe there was 8,000 set aside for Barrie on an annual basis, and I believe 3,000 set aside for Midland. So funds have been set aside provisionally for those. I believe, though, in the past, Midland has not approached the township seeking funding, and hence why funding has not been provided. Happy, again, if they're in need, absolutely, council can consider that and provide direction to staff. But we have, again, set aside some funds for them. They just have not come to council seeking funding, is my understanding.
Follow on, Councillor Ritchie.
Well, Mayor Allen, and thank you for the information, skills. That's why they put the presentation on before, because I was after them. I sit on the board, and they were after funding, and I said, well, you need to come put a presentation on. So they have complied. So I think the ball's in our court to do something.
But was there an ask that arose from that presentation? I can't remember.
I think there was, but I'm not sure. Maybe Clerk Ainsworth could help us with that. I'm not sure.
And either CEO Schmidt or Clerk Ainsworth, do you recall whether there was a dollar amount requested, Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. From my recollection, there was no funding request submitted, and it's the South Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment. That's their official name.
Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm questioning why this has to be divided up into different pockets. We have a lot of other funds, be it reserves, other accounts where when we need money, we'll just go there and we take the money out and without allotting it to certain pockets. So by allotting this to the hospital, if you like, or the recruitment and so on, it almost appears to me, or I'm sure it appears to others, that we're pre-approving things. We have the high school come forward and ask for funds. We have people that need a community assistance come forward and have the funds, and we just go to the swing account, if you like, and we draw the money out if council agrees, and we donate it or spend it. So I guess my question is, why do we have to break it up? Why can't we just leave it in an account like we do with all other funds and all other accounts?
Okay, other comments, thoughts? CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hanna. I don't necessarily disagree, Councillor Hanna. From an administration standpoint, staff side, it'd be much easier. I would just note that in the invitations to the individuals that participated, these were the causes, if you will, of where we mentioned where the proceeds would likely go. So I would just advise council that that's the information that was provided to them. So most of them are under the impression funds would be going to assist these various areas.
Follow on.
Thank you. Yes, and I agree, and it should go to those accounts if they come forward. I'm just suggesting we just leave it all in one bank account, if you like, and we take it out when it's appropriate. And as the CEO suggested, it's a lot easier for staff as well.
Just for an example, CEO Schmidt or Director Radigan, have there been any requests that have come forward that are pending where we're at with these funds now? For instance, has Barrie approached physician recruitment and made a request for this year thus far? Director Radigan?
Thank you, through Mayor Allen. No, they have not. I do believe it was included as part of the budget, but no, they have not come forward and made an actual formal request.
Okay. Any further comments, CEO Schmidt? No. Councillor Mott Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I agree with Councillor Hanna that just have one pocket and we can just amend it where it has those, that the money is used towards those for physician recruitment and the CAP. My question is, do we have any remaining funds from 2018 from the swing?
Director Radigan, and maybe you could also answer whether there's any CAP money, community assistance program money,
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you to Councillor Ma Chapman. Yes, I do believe there is potentially approximately maybe 5,000 left from the last spring water swing. And I do recall there being a small amount remaining in the cap as well. I just don't have that figure on the top of my head. I'm not sure if CAO Schmidt might.
No, he's shaking his head. All right, so Councillor Hannah has put forward an amendment, Clerk Ainsworth. And Councillor Ma Chapman, are you seconding that amendment? Yes. Clerk Ainsworth, can you read wording to encompass that amendment, please?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. What I would recommend to ensure that those programs remain in the motion is to remove the amount, the blank amounts for funding, and just to have the second paragraph read that the proceeds from the spring water swing golf tournament be allocated to the community assistance program, the physician recruitment, and charitable and community organizations. And that way there's no pockets, but it states that the proceeds are allocated to those programs and causes.
Is it okay with the mover and seconder? Councillor Hannah, oh, yes, and yes. Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have a question for maybe Director Radigan regarding the safe stations. Just curious that the ongoing maintenance, once the safe station's been installed, is that cost coming out of this funding, or does it come out of the sort of a different pocket?
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Moore. No, it does. The maintenance of those safe stations would form part of our operating budget. I believe that was part of the agreement, that it would be a township cost.
So the cost that I see here is just strictly the purchase cost outside of the ones that were fundraised for. Those are paid for. Okay,
That's
thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so we've got the amendment. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving to action reports 7.1 consists of action reports 7.2 through 7.11, and 7.4 has been pulled and will not be discussed this evening. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Before we proceed, we would just need a vote on the main motion as amended for the spring water swing.
6.2. Okay, can you read it as amended, please?
That the report from the manager, Recreation Parks and Facilities regarding the 2022 Spring Water Swing Golf Tournament dated August 3rd, 2022 be received, and that the proceeds from the Spring Water Swing Golf Tournament be allocated to the Community Assistance Program, physician recruitment, and charitable and community organizations. And further, that the disbursement of the above noted funds be in accordance with township procedures.
Okay, Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, I just want to get some direction here. Like I mentioned, put forward about the Midland physician recruitment. Like, do I need to go back to them and tell them they need to come back, or do they send a letter stating their amount, or what do they do?
I would suggest that the potential is incorporated in this amended motion. So I would suggest revisiting with them the delegation and the need or potential ask that they would communicate to council in some fashion. Yes.
Well, they came, put a presentation on, and I believe the request was, they're looking for funding. So how do I go back? How do I address this?
By going back to them and saying, be more specific as to what your need is, and communicate to council about that.
So would a letter be sufficient, or they need to what?
No, a letter would be sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion as amended? That is carried. Okay, so back, did we have a mover and seconder for 7.1, Clerk Ainsworth? Or, yeah, for the action reports, I think we did capture that, didn't we? A mover and seconder? Yes, Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Moore. Okay, so we have 7.2 through 7.11 with the exception of 7.4. So let's, any questions with respect to any of these or desire to pull? Councillor Ritchie?
Mayor Allen, 7.7.
I can't hear you, Councillor Ritchie.
Yeah, I know. 7.7 regarding the Phelpston Marsh.
7.7, a question or a pull?
Pull it, please.
Okay. Next. Councillor Mott Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just have a comment on 7.2 and 7.8 and 7.7, but I will talk about 7.7 when it's pulled.
So you have a question about 7.2.
And 7.8.
7.8, a question, or you want it pulled?
Just a question.
Councillor Hannah?
Pull 7.8, please.
7.8. Pull. Councillor Ritchie?
I'd like to 7.9. Would you pull that, please?
Okay, anything else? Nothing else to be questioned or pulled? Okay, so the motion reads that the action report 7.2 through 7.11 be received and that the recommendations therein be approved as presented for 7.3, 7.4 has been pulled, 7.5, 7.6, 7.10, and 7.11. With the exception of, sorry, I'm going to back up. Let's deal with the questions first. Sorry. So we had questions on 7.2 from Councillor Mott Chapman. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. My question is, I'm just curious if we know if any of those defibrillators that we purchased for the township have been used, and are we looking in the future to install more? I take it.
Okay, in the absence of Manager Dean, I'll go to General Manager Ramdeo.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Mott Chapman. I'll try my best to answer. I may get some things wrong, but as far as I'm aware, they have been used. And the aim of this policy is to essentially to get ahead of Bill 141, which is coming, which is the Defibrillator Registration and Public Access Act, which in it has very specific requirements. If we were to put more defibrillators, in addition to the existing ones, very specific requirements in terms of registration of them, where to put them, the maintenance that's required, the testing the annual testing that's required, those sort of things. It's to get ahead of the act so that, and to prevent us from putting many defibrillators in very close proximity to each other. So this sets a process where we can apply an objective standard to wherever we will put defibrillators in the future. So that's the point of the report. Sorry, could you repeat the second part of your question?
Councillor Mott Chapman.
Yep. So my second part was I would imagine that we're looking at providing more into the future in the township, plus the, if anyone wants to go in an agreement, then we would place it with those criterias, correct?
General Manager?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Marchapman. Yes, that is correct. The idea is that we wish to put them where most needed and work with the community who might wish to provide them according to a very objective criteria.
Okay, so the others will be pulled. So I'll go ahead again. We have a mover and seconder for the action report 7.2 through 7.11 be received, and the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. For 7.2, 7.3, 7.4 has been pulled. 7.5, 7.6, 7.10, and 7.11. All those with the exception of 7.7, 7.8, and 7.9, which will be dealt with separately. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, moving to in order 7.7, which is the McElwain Robertson Branch Drain maintenance. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Cabral. Go ahead, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just threw to Bahash two questions. When can we, now that we've gone through the process, when can we get started, and how long is it going to take? Because I know there's farmers waiting to put tile drains in, and this has been they've been a bit of an issue there for them. So when can we get started, and how long does it take to get this thing dug out?
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Ritchie. When can we get started with the first part? I would suspect within a few weeks of this awarding. The only thing we would need to do is to firm up the notice of award to the contractor, to Dan Higgs. In terms of getting it done, Dan is quite quick. This, based upon the price, I would suspect this is just a few days' work, maybe a week or two work.
Follow up, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, Mayor Allen, thank you. Are we going to be overseeing that? I'm assuming we are, but while we have a machine on the grounds at the site doing the digging to make sure it's done and done right, get the water flowing, get these guys up and running. So my question is, are we going to be overseeing this?
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Ritchie. Yes, we are. Mr. Steve Buchanan will be overseeing this work directly.
Thank you.
So the motion reads that did you have a question, Councillor Marchapman?
Yeah, I just had a comment on that. I just wanted, thank you, Mary Ellen. I just wanted to know when the last time maintenance was done on that drain.
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Marchapman. Councillor Marchapman, I'll have to get back to you on the exact time. I don't have that information now. Thanks.
Okay, please, Councillor Ritchie.
I just want to add to what Councillor Chapman, this hasn't been dug out in years. So some of these municipal drains, I believe there's 22 in our municipality. And from that report that Mr. Buchanan brought forward a few years ago, which was so well done, but these municipal drains are so important. And to get this one dug out, to get the train drain dug out, that was back to 6, and it takes in maybe between a 400 to 600 acre plot. And to see these large 8 and 10 inch tile drains running full capacity, it really tells you something. And since that time, I think I'm repeating myself, but since that time, there's been other farms sold, and they've tile drained it, the hook into the train drain because it's dug out. These is very important to get these things dug out, get the water flowing. So I commend Public Works for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion, Councillor Marchapman.
Thank you, Marilyn. Just one last question that Councillor Ritchie brought to my attention. Once it's maintenance, once it's cleaned up, will we have a maintenance schedule like we did with what we do with the Swilly drain? Like
General Manager.
Year?
Thanks, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Marchapman. At this point in time, we don't have a formal maintenance program for these drains. Manager Hall and I are actually working on a plan of a program that we hope to then bring forward as part of the 2023 budget deliberation to start moving in that direction.
Okay, the motion that the report from the drainage superintendent regarding Phelpston Marsh, McElwain, and Robertson Branch Drain Maintenance dated August 3, 2022 be received, and that funding of $39,600.94 plus HST recoveries be drawn from Public Works Reserve Fund, and the council authorize the award of the Phelpston Marsh, McElwain, Robertson Branch Drain Maintenance to Dan Higgs Excavating Limited for $42,660 plus HST. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving to 7.8, which is the request for Rainbow Crosswalk in Elm Vale. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma Chapman. Councillor Ma Chapman, start with your question.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just wondering if the Elm Vale High School had that group had a say in the design.
Okay, I'll have to go to General Manager Ramdale, please.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Ma Chapman. From what I understand, yes, they have been part of the process.
Okay, and Councillor Hannah asked for this to be pulled, and then I'll go to Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. And I know this is a sensitive topic, so I want to be very clear. This is a special interest group, if you like, that came forward asking for council support a crosswalk, a rainbow crosswalk in Elm Vale. Council was supportive of that, at least I was supportive of it. So my point being is that the special interest group, being EDHS, asked for our approval and funding. And the response back from council was that we would ask staff to report on it, and we would ask them to provide contribution as well. In the report, it says EDHS have come up with $1,000. What I don't understand is how it's gone from a crosswalk, a rainbow crosswalk in Elm Vale, to painting the steps at our community, or I should say our township administration building. And then it's gone from an expense that probably would have cost taxpayers maybe $1,000 or $2,000 has gone to an expense of $9,000. And so I don't understand how it's excelled to that level. And again, being again, take away what the topic about this is. This is a special interest group that are trying to support a bunch of individuals that we all try to support and recognize their difficulties. But the topic here to me is a special interest group. I've asked for a contribution, asked for support of council, and that's what should be deciding on. And again, I don't understand why it's got to the township administration office entranceway steps. I can't support that, but I definitely support the funding and going forward with the Rainbow Crosswalk in Elm Vale.
Thank you, General Manager Ramdale.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Hannah. The beginning with the first one, the crosswalk in Elm Vale. The quote that we have to do that crosswalk takes up 8,500 of the 9,000 requested. So the remaining monies would be for the paint for the admin center. Staff, the idea was that staff would be doing that internally, so we wouldn't incur an extra cost for that. As to why that was added to it, I do not have that answer right now. I'll get back to you on that one. Sorry.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, I do have the answer to Councillor Hannah's question. So when this was brought forward on May 18th, the motion that was ultimately approved by council included the crosswalk in Elm Vale as well as the stairs at the administration center. So that comes directly from the direction provided at the May 18th meeting.
So I'm sorry, I have to respond, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hannah?
I apologize if that was in that motion, but I don't recall hearing that or reading it. So if it was there, I missed it. Again, I didn't see that in the motion at that time, or I wouldn't have supported it. But I do support the crosswalk in Elm Vale, and then I'll be voting against anything further.
Councillor Cabral?
Balance for you. I don't know, Councillor Moore, was your hand up? Were you up before me? Because if you were, I'm happy to let you go ahead.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you very much. I don't recall voting on the stairs either. So if we did, then I'm apologizing because I have some concerns about painting any stairs, especially when we have multi-generations using them. We've got older folks that can easily misread stairs, and at the very least, I would have recommended that the Joint Accessibility Committee through the county review that request. So I'm happy to put an amendment forward that we support the crosswalk, but I can't support the stairs without at least having that committee review it.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And for clarification, it would be the back part of the risers and not the actual stair face that would be painted. But if council would like to propose an amendment to remove the administration center from that motion, then this would be the time to table that. And I am looking at the minutes from that meeting in May. So the original motion was to receive the delegation from EDHS. There was an amendment tabled by Deputy Mayor Coughlin and seconded by Councillor Cabral to amend the motion to add that staff report back to council on the feasibility and costing of developing a rainbow crosswalk in collaboration with the EDHS Gay Straight Alliance in Elm Vale and at the administration center. So that's how that piece ended up in the motion. It was done by amendment to the main motion.
Okay. Are there cards up? Councillor Cabral?
Just, thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to comment on that. Actually, anybody who has any kind of a problem with depth perception, it's not the stairs that would likely confuse them. It would actually be the risers that would likely cause them difficulty. So I kind of have to agree with Councillor Moore on that. I do have a question, but I'll wait until after Mayor Allen.
No, you go ahead, Councillor Cabral. Pose it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm supportive of this. I really would have liked to have seen a little bit more commitment from EDHS Gay Straight Alliance as far as their fundraising and monetary contribution, only because I think they had a wonderful opportunity to really get out there and create a bit of an excitement about it and get people to jump on board and raise a bit of funding along the way. It's one thing when we do something like this and there's merit to the project, but we have to keep in mind that it's also taxpayer dollars that we're putting into it. And reading the report, it's not a one-off deal, or whether or not we're going to say we're going to do it until the paint goes bad and then that's the end of this one. It could very well be something that's ongoing, coming down the road with incurred costs on a regular basis. So I do have a question for General Manager Ramdeo, and it's in regards to Figure 2, which shows both potential designs for the Rainbow Crosswalk. And I'm just looking at them and I'm kind of the mind that the one at the top might be, because it looks like it uses substantially less paint for coverage. It might be a little bit more economical for us to proceed in that fashion than the one at the bottom, which indicates the entire pavement is completely covered with paint. I'm just wondering if General Manager Ramdale can speak to that and offer any suggestions, or tell us if there is a significant difference between the two crosswalks and how much it would cost to paint them.
And if I may add to that, the third depiction in the report, which is the dimension one with the stripes and then the arrows, I would find that potentially quite distracting for a driver. So I don't like that, and I agree with what Councillor Cabral is saying about paint usage and sharing the contribution. So General Manager Ramdale.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. In terms of the cost to complete the works, there wasn't a significant difference in terms of the cost between the laddered crosswalk design and the flag type one that's in option 3. The information that I do have from staff was that the laddered one actually would require more precision. Seems odd, seems counterintuitive to make it look right than the flag type. That's the information that we got from the contractor. In terms of which one to use, while it is preference of the parties involved for the flag type, I think ultimately it would be a decision. We would rely on council as to which one council prefers to see out there. I do not have any information in terms of traffic safety considerations around the flag type. I have not heard anything about that. I just haven't. Thanks.
What about the contribution of the organization? What about splitting it 50-50? And also making it clear that this is a one-time thing and not an ongoing thing. Potentially.
Yes, Mayor Allen. That is something we can go back to the Gay Straight Alliance and ask and speak to them about. The conversations that we did have with them was $1,000. Definitely, we go back to them for 50%, and also indicate to them that it is a one-time shot. The material chosen for this one should last 3 to 5 years. Thereafter, we can look at the options thereafter.
Okay, so Clerk Ainsworth, can you capture these potential amendments? And while you're doing that, Councillor Cabral, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to General Manager Ramdale. I know we're looking at the vinyl one, and I'm just speaking from experience. Paint is one thing, but folks who ride motorcycles, when it's wet out, you can well imagine they have to be a little bit more careful. But when the stop line, stop signs, the paint on the ground, especially when it's the vinyl appliques, doesn't really matter which one we go with here. I could see the potential for someone to put their motorcycle down if we went with something that was going to might be durable, but it could also be very hazardous to somebody, even on a bicycle, 2 wheels, if they, had to stop all of a sudden for whatever reason. So I would like Director Ramdale to consider something that would serve the purpose. Maybe it wouldn't be as durable, but it would certainly offer a little bit more traction for 2-wheeled vehicles that might be passing along 92 there, because not 92, Queen Street West, because it is a heavily traveled roadway. And on Thursday nights during the summer months, there's a significant number of motorcycles that travel into town specifically to just do a bit of a meet and greet there. It's become a bit of an event in Elm Vale. So thoughts on that, Director Ramdale?
Yep, go ahead, General Manager.
Thank you,
It's General Manager, by the way. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. Councillor Cabral, definitely I'll have to defer to you in terms of the experience of motorcyclists on thermoplastic. You've got more experience there than I. In terms of the comment about taking all steps to ensure that there's some skid resistance on whatever we do put down, yes, that is something that we will go back to whoever installs it to ensure that it is done right.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth. Oops, a couple of cards. CEO Schmidt and Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to members of council. I just wanted to comment on the Township Administration Center stairs specifically. And I would just ask for council's consideration that, as Councillor Hanna mentioned earlier, this is a significant topic, and it is something that has been discussed at a significant level over the last year or two. And I would suggest that council, by agreeing to paint the stairs at the Administration Center, would show support to the community and to staff of the township that they are supportive of it, of being inclusive and being diverse. And so, further to that, we have started to change the culture here at the Township Administration Center and the municipality. One item, may be small, but one item that we have changed recently was just even our washrooms. The washrooms on the main floor were used to be specific to a male, female. That is no longer the case. We are moving to general neutral washrooms. So again, in the spirit of supporting being inclusive and diverse, I would ask that you consider moving forward with the painting of the stairs at the Administration Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a question. I know the cost is 9,000. Does that matter whether we use method 1, 2, or 3? The same cost, whether we go with 1?
I think it said up to 9,000, but General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Ma Chapman. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me right now, but from what I understood, they were very close in terms of cost. Not significant.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Sorry for the delay there, Mayor Allen. I'm wondering, based on CAO Schmidt, through you, but based on CAO Schmidt's comments and the concerns about doing the stairs, would it be possible, as a bit of a compromise, to do a rainbow sidewalk at the front doors coming into the admin center? That would at least provide the recognition and the inclusivity without putting anybody really at risk trying to navigate the stairs if they've got issues with their vision. Is that something that might be considered? I mean, the sidewalk's plenty wide enough there. I'm wondering if that might be something we could consider.
I think I'm seeing CEO nod his head vertically in agreement with that. Did you want to add anything, CEO Schmidt, verbally?
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. Again, appreciate the support and comment, Councillor Cabral, and the suggestion. And absolutely, that would be something that staff would be most appreciative of from council and supporting that initiative. So thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I like that too. I think it's important to recognize everybody, and without taking, possibly unnecessary risks, I would be in full support of having the front sidewalk painted in the rainbow flag.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth, can you read us the amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I would just like to seek clarification on one point regarding which figure in the report council is looking to have installed in Elm Vale. So there's figure 1, which is the ladder pattern. Figure 2 is the longitudinal pattern. And then figure 3, I don't believe was requested by council, but it is the updated design of the flag.
I think to Councillor Cabral's point about slippage, if you had the division, I'm interpreting the first one, figure 1, the ladder pattern, as having the pavement as it is in between the colors to reduce the potential of slippage as compared to figure 2, where it's all the flag painted in the whole area. Is that interpretation correct, General Manager?
Mayor Allen, yes, I would concur with that interpretation. My thoughts exactly.
So is council okay with figure 1 then? I'm seeing nodding heads. So figure 1, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you. So based on the conversation, what I would recommend is the amendment to have that the first paragraph include the words that a 50% funding agreement be requested, and that would be from EDHS. That the third paragraph be amended to remove the words painted steps on each of the 7 steps leading to the main entrance, and replacing it with a rainbow sidewalk. And then adding at the end of the motion, and that figure 1 in the report be selected as the design in Elm Vale.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 7.9, the BMR Pro Elm Vale. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. We would just need a vote on the main motion as amended.
Okay. Anybody want that reread before we vote the main motion as amended? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. 7.9 BMR Pro Elm Vale. Mover and seconder to get it on the floor. Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Moore. Go ahead, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I support staff fully in their in taking this approach to help this project out, so we can move forward. We can pass it and then go to the county. The big stumbling block here is with the MVCA, and I know you sit on that board. I'm asking that you maybe bring this up with them to maybe help this project move forward, so that he's kind of in a bit of a time crunch, and it'd be nice to try and get this thing approved and get him up and get him on his way. And again, the MVCA seems to be holding out on this, so I'm asking. I know you sit on that board. If you could bring that to their attention and see what we can do to get this guy fixed up. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Ritchie, as we saw from reading the report, there are studies that the MVCA is requiring that they don't have. So as you well know from sitting on the board previously, if they've requested those studies, I can't go and say you don't need those studies, and please approve it without them. Go ahead.
Well, you know what? A 3-season study, it's like I mean, the question here is, like, I mean, the project and the development that's going to be done is sufficiently far enough away, at least in my opinion, many others, that without affecting the sensitivity of the creek. And I think that's the question right there. A 3-season study, like, I mean, there's been enough studies down, unless there's some other kind of a study that could be done to satisfy them, and maybe that's something worth mentioning to them about. That's the whole reason here, is that, you know, this development's far enough away not to affect anything. So I mean, I think they're out of line to be asking for such things as this. So that's why it's worth getting involved.
Director Spagnell, my understanding from reading the report is that this can go forward with the understanding that this information that MVCA is requesting is required as soon as possible, but this doesn't put the total brakes on the project, does it?
Mayor Allen, thank you. Yeah, so the process that's been laid out within the staff report would allow for the official plan amendment to go to the county for adoption. And that would essentially allow for additional time, or for time for the applicant to address the environmental impact study that the NVCA has referenced as a requirement within their comments. The one thing I'd like to point out is that there was some statements made in the public meeting by the applicant that there was an understanding that the EIS may not be required because there was going to be work done as part of a subsequent application. So essentially what this would allow for is the official plan amendment to be considered by county council and allow for the applicant to figure out the scope of work that would be required to bring the zoning forward. So it does allow the project to move forward to a point of approval. However, until such time as NVCA sign off is provided, the zoning bylaw amendment would not come forward to this council until the NVCA is satisfied the limits of development have been adequately demonstrated through the work of the applicant.
And the county weighed in on this as well, Director Spagnell, is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor Allen. As far as an official plan amendment goes, the applicant has adjusted the wording to the OPA, and staff is not anticipating any county pushback on the draft that's before council tonight.
Councilor Cabral? Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, Director Spagnell. I was actually along the same lines as Mayor Allen. When it came up before, there was some notations made, comments from the county with respect to the zoning that they were applying for and the zoning that the county thought was more appropriate, that would let them do what they wanted to do, but still maintain some, I guess, structural control over the entire project. That's not included here, but could you advise me whether or not the zoning was changed to accommodate the county moving forward?
Director Spagnell?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councilor Cabral. The zoning amendment will be modified and revised to reflect the county comments, so that essentially what there would be is a site-specific exception that would essentially allow for the business to expand the way that they would like by introducing the uses that they require as part of that expansion. So the zoning would definitely reflect the county's wording, but it would not have an impact on the ability of the business owner to expand and do what they need to do on those lands to be expanded onto.
Okay, the motion reads that the report from the senior planner regarding OP 2022-001 and ZB 2022-005 BMR Pro Elm Vale dated August 3, 2022 be received, and that council adopt the official plan amendment OPA 64, and that the amendment be submitted to the County of Simcoe for final approval subject to minor modifications, and that the implementing zoning bylaw be submitted to council for adoption subject to the approval of the official plan amendment by the County of Simcoe and determination of the final limits of development by the MVCA. All those in favor? It is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we can move on to 8, which is information reports. Can I have a mover and seconder to get these on the floor? Councillor Maude Chapman and Councillor Moore. Are there any questions with respect to these information reports? Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor, for your indulgence. I realize these are information reports, but I would like to suggest a motion to go with 8.5, the budget presentation.
Okay, let's go ahead and
thank you. And my observation is that when the budget comes forward, it's going to be a new council, and anybody that can relate to their first year on council, there's a lot of things to learn and things to adjust to. The budget is a very intense thing for anybody, especially those who may not have a lot of experience with budgeting or management a corporation. So I point that out because the fiscal pressures that the Director of Finance has provided, or the Manager of Finance, is very informative. It talks about the fiscal pressures, the economy, inflation, interest rates, and so on, and the cost of living expenses that are going up. My concern is that a new council coming in may not have the time, because as I said, you got the new council getting sworn in, then you got Christmas break, and then you're into the budget. So again, if you can reflect back to your first year on council, you understand the point I'm trying to make. My first thought was to bring forward a motion suggesting that council direct staff to come forward with a budget with 0 tax increase for 2023. And reading over all the impacts and the things that may affect township as well in their costs, I don't think that would maybe be an appropriate suggestion or recommendation. What I would like to do is pass a motion that council table the motion. I'm sorry, when staff table the motion in January, that it come forward with no program changes. It would allow staff to get the funding they need for all the other things they need, but there'd be no new program changes. And as you know from the doing the budget, there's always a lot of discussion and a lot of debate over program changes. And I believe the first year of council, that would be an appropriate thing to have in the budget, and that's 0 program changes. So that's my motion.
Clerk Ainsworth, refresh us on dealing with motions on information reports.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. An information report can be pulled if a member of council would like to seek alternate direction, or as Councillor Hannah is requesting to submit a motion based on that. So I would recommend pulling item 5, dealing with the remainder of the items, and then we would table item 5 as an information report, and Councillor Hannah could table his request as an amendment to that motion.
Okay, let's just shelve that then, Councillor Hannah, and look to see whether there are any others that anybody wants to pull. Councillor Moore? Or have questions about?
Yeah, I think I'd like to pull report number 2, please.
2 and 5. Anything else? Okay, we have a mover and seconder that the report items listed herein be received as information. 1, Spongy Moth update. 2, facility assessment study. 3, Simcoe Trails Connecting Community Programs funding. 4, Q2 2022 procurement summary. 6, ZB 2022-009 O'Brien Russell Road. 7, ZB 2022-010 Midhurst Rose Alliance, 2351 Gill Road. Number 8, ZB 2022-011 and 2022-001 Mallory Subdivision. 9, ZB 2022-012 Huron Creek Developments, Elm Vale Village Phase 1. Number 10, ZB 2022-002 Johnson, 3772 Horseshoe Valley Road West, and 11 Bylaw Services Activity Report, June 2022, with the exception of item 2 and item 5, which will be dealt with separately. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we'll start with 5 because Councillor Hannah was in the process of making a motion. He suggested the motion. Is there a seconder for this? Clerk Ainsworth, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. As the item was pulled, we would need a mover and seconder for the main motion, and then he would be able to table his amendment.
Okay, a mover and seconder for the main motion as amended. Deputy Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Cabral. Do we need to read it through, or can we just go ahead? Anybody require reading through it again? All those in favor? Go ahead, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Before a vote, so item 5 would now be tabled, and Councillor Hannah would now have to submit his amendment to this motion and seek a seconder, and then proceed that way.
And then we do item 2.
Yes, and the main motion as amended for item 5. So I would just require clarification again. My apologies for Councillor Hannah's amendment.
Okay, so Councillor Hannah, please restate your amendment.
Yes, that council directs staff to table the 2023 budget without any program changes.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ritchie. A discussion. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess my comments or observations would be that, you know, be frank, going back, that was a lot to consume. And I'd like to think that having a background in policy and planning and being able to wade through, you know, legislative requirements and that kind of stuff, I thought I had a bit of a handle on it, but I'm kind of thinking that maybe along the lines of what Councillor Han has brought up here today, that it might not be something to not consider. I think maybe it should be considered. And my other thoughts on it would be that last year, basically the budget, the consultant, service delivery review, compensation grid review, everything ended up going through. And basically a lot of the pressures that were in place were relieved, and hopefully we're still moving forward with that. There's still some changes coming on. So I'm kind of thinking, Mayor Allen and Council, that going into next year, especially given, you know, some of the pressures that the report talks about, and some of the uncertainty with respect to interest rates and things like that, there might be a lot of pressure on the residents of Springwater Township. Maybe this is something that should be considered.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. Just a question through you to, I guess, CEO Schmidt. Small things like this council has spoken about our ability, our lack of ditching. So ditching right now, we have had reports come to council that we need to do more ditching on an annual basis. Would that be a program change, or would that be an increase? Because there are things that I think that our residents have been requesting of us. Would this motion or this amendment prevent that from happening?
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So typically in those instances, Deputy Mayor Coughlin, they have come through as program changes, simply for the fact that it's potentially a significant increase in the budget line. So we want to highlight it and have council have debate and discussion about it. Obviously, there would also be a change in service, because essentially we're no longer ditching, in this case, the existing requirement. We would be increasing the level of service, if you will, for ditching. And so that would be, should be considered a program change. And I would just say too, while I have the opportunity, is, you know, staff have identified previously in different updates that, you know, what our staffing plan is, which we would hope council to consider on a go-forward basis. You know, we continue to grow, we continue to have requirements, and to not allow us to bring forward a program change or any program changes, understanding the current environment, yes, and staff are very aware of the current environment, and we'll do our best to ensure that we bring forward a reasonable budget. But I think there likely will be program changes that will need to be considered as we move forward in 2023 and future years. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. I see program changes for the most part, in my mind anyway, as new hires. And as the Deputy Mayor has brought forward the question about ditching, I guess my question through you, Mayor, to CEO Schmidt, is that the funds are already there now for that program changes, if you like, for the ditching. Would those funds not just be carried forward again because they've already been approved for in 2022? Would the funds not still be there to continue providing that level of service?
CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hanna. So I believe, Councillor Hanna, you're correct based on what you've stated, is that under the existing program, under the existing ditching program, in this case, I think we do 10 kilometers a year, I think is the number. So we have funds for that. But I think what Deputy Mayor Coughlin is mentioning is that there was a suggestion that we would enhance our ditching. And so we would be essentially doing 20, 30 kilometers a year, whatever the number is. So that would be an enhancement. That would be an increase in the level of service. Those typically will come through a program change, and they have in past years, we've brought program changes forward when we've tried to increase different programs and services. So that's the intent of a program change, so that you don't see in your base budget huge increases or spikes in any operating area. We can highlight those through a program change and have a further discussion. So that's what we've done in past practice.
Follow on?
No, thank you. And I understand it's an increase in the 10 kilometers, if you like. So you've done 10 kilometers last year, the year before, and so on. You still do 10 kilometers of ditching in 2023, but you couldn't increase it. I understand that. So again, my whole suggestion here is that making it reasonable for a new council coming forward to be able to handle and produce or support a budget that they totally can understand and can bring forward, maintaining the same levels of services that we're currently providing, funding the base budget, but not creating any extra funds basically for program changes, which in my mind are generally new hires. That's the purpose of my motion.
Go ahead, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, just through you to Councillor Hanna. So Councillor Hanna and all members of council, we are going to be having quite a few council orientation sessions. I believe one is slated for the budget specifically. So to try to set aside some time with new members of council to provide some further dialogue and further discussion and clarification on the budget. Absolutely, I can attest to your comments that it is a daunting task from a budget perspective for new members of council. But again, I think Director Radigan may be able to help me here. I think the intent was also to maybe change the process whereby allowing a date or days whereby new members of council can come in and spend time with Director Radigan and or senior management to have specific discussions about the budget, so that again to try to provide as much clarification and to assist them as much as we can as we move through this new budget cycle and this new term of council. So we're here to help where we can, if we can. And again, I definitely understand some of your comments and the daunting task that they have before them. So,
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. A question to the Clerk Renee. It's all right for us to sit here, but in a few months' time, there's going to be a new council, and I don't think we should be dictating to the new councils what they should be doing. They'll have their own mindset and what they should be doing, and staff will be there to help direct them. So I'm kind of at a loss here. Like what we decide we're going to do, does it become null and void after we're all gone? And they got a fresh slate, so we can sit here and decide what we're going to do. But once the new council walks in, takes a seat, can they not just do whatever they want to do anyways?
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you through yourself to Councillor Ritchie. Yes, council can reverse any decisions. New council, my apologies, could reverse any decisions such as that this council would have implemented. I also do want to bring just something to council's attention. This amendment, there have been previous decisions earlier this year of items that were deferred to be brought forward through the 2023 budget. So this direction would also need to take that into consideration. Just one example would be the junior planner that was proposed on June 1st. Council had deferred that motion to be specifically considered through the 2023 budget. So that would have to be taken into consideration with this amendment, as it would contravene the direction that had been previously provided.
I agree with Councillor Ritchie. I think to enact something like this would fetter the future council. There, potentially some returning councillors. There are some new councillors who I'm sure are all keen and bring potential of a variety of experience. CAO Schmidt and Director Radigan will have great training programs, as will Clerk Ainsworth. So, you know, to start trying to reach into the next council and say, limit them as to what they can do and can't do in budget, I think is totally wrong. So I can't support this. Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
No, thank you, Marilyn. Nothing further.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. In response to your comments, I think every decision we make, we fetter the next council because that's what happens. But the bottom line is, I can just feel the air going out of this whole thing. So I'll just withdraw my motion. I was trying to do something constructive, but it didn't work. So I pass on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Marilyn. Just also, if CAO Schmidt, or through you to CAO Schmidt or Director Madigan.
Councillor Cabral, can you speak closer into the mic? You're wavering in and out. We can't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now?
Faintly.
I don't know. Okay, that's as close as I can get, Mayor Allen.
That's better. That's better. I want to see the color of your eyes, Councillor Cabral.
I'm looking at my tonsils. That's still have mine. Anyway, I just wanted to know, Director, you to CAO Schmidt or Director Madigan, hopefully they can answer the question. At what point in time, I know that council passed the pay grid, but it was for a period of time. When does that come due again for council to review that? Is that at the end of this year, or is that form part of the 2023 budget?
Director Madigan.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I believe council did not approve the entire grid. They only approved the 2022 grid. So as part of the 2023 budget process, staff will be bringing forward the grid and requesting approval of the grid as well as part of that process.
Clerk Ainsworth, did you have a point that you wanted to make?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wanted to advise Councillor Cabral. I believe it's just something touching his microphone. I think there might be papers on top.
Okay, it's that new sign, request to speak, that you made. Get it off the microphone. Okay, moving on to item 2, which is the facility assessment study, Granville. Oh, sorry, we have to pass the one we just talked about, which is 5. So let me get down to 5. Okay, so Clerk Ainsworth, we're just receiving 5 as an information report, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Maude Chapman and Deputy Mayor Coughlin, all those in favor? That is carried. To 2, facilities assessment study. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Moore, presumably. And Councillor Maude Chapman. Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. A couple of things I want to address with this report. First of all, recognizing that the studies are including 23 facilities and 18 provisional facilities. So that's a large number of facilities that our study completers are going to have to do. What they're recommending today, and recognizing that by 2025, the Grenfell Hall will be considered poor condition. Today it's in overall fair condition, but in 3 years or less, it will be in poor condition. So given the fact that I don't know how long it's going to take to do another 40 assessments, I think that the money is set aside to make these minor improvements. I'd like to see the improvements go forward. I don't know what the future holds for the Grenfell Hall or any of our halls. I don't know what the utilization is. I don't know what the feasibility is. But given the fact that we do have the money that has been earmarked for this hall in particular, I would like to move forward and have these improvements made within the next budget cycle. It doesn't affect our budget. So it just has to actually get put onto the job board to be completed.
General Manager Ramdale?
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. In terms of, yes, you are correct. Put it through in the budget and we'll get it done next year in terms of what needs to be done. Going back to the assessments, the other assessments are complete. So we'll be in a position, our hope is that come 2023, to be asking for the monies for based upon the recommendations out of the assessments, including Grenfell, and get them done.
So I guess my question then
Follow on,
sorry.
Councillor Moore.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
My question then is, how are we going to move forward with the feasibility of these halls? I did speak with CAO Schmidt, and I was curious to know what the utilization was at this point of this particular hall. And I think he was going to try and rustle up that information. But I think that's the next conversation we have to have is, recognizing that they are underutilized. I think if it's in fair condition, though, at this stage, it's not a lot of money and the money is there, that I think we should move ahead and do these small repairs to keep it at least in good condition more than just 2 or 3 years down the road.
I'll go to CAO Schmidt first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Moore. So correct, Councillor Moore and I did have a conversation, and I think the idea was here is that the facility assessment studies are required. Firstly, for asset management purposes, it is a requirement that we have the status of the current status of all of our facilities, and so we have that as General Manager Ramdale mentioned, and the rest of that information will be provided to council in due time here. But I think the other piece too then is as Councillor Moore mentioned is that gives us a status update of where the facilities are from a structural perspective or a condition perspective. But really, I think there needs to be some conversation once you see the status of some of the other reports as to what is the long-term vision for some of these community halls or these facilities that the township's responsible for. Some of them, as Councillor Moore mentioned, are underutilized, and I think whether there's a feasibility study considered for some of these, and or maybe some tougher conversations need to be happening as to what is the long-term sustainability of some of these facilities. I don't know what the answer is to that at this stage. Maybe through the discussion with the community on our community-based strategic plan, some of that will evolve and come out of those discussions, and we maybe get a better understanding of priorities in some of these communities. But again, I think this is kind of the first step in the process is let's see what the condition is, because I'll be honest, I don't want to speak for Councillor Moore, but when I saw the report on the Grenfell Hall, I was a little surprised, to be quite honest with you. But it is what it is. I'm not a professional in this area, and this is what the current condition is according to them, and this is what they're recommending. But I think further conversation needs to happen specifically with Grenfell, as well as some of the other community halls that we have in the municipality, to determine what is their long-term sustainability and what is their long-term intent, if you will.
General Manager Ramdale, what was the thinking behind spreading this out from 2022 to 2026, the $76,000?
Yes, Mayor Allen. The premise behind building a bit on what CEO Schmidt said, the asset management requirements today is to ensure that it remains in a state that is fit for use, not to improve it, not to ensure that it looks as new as it was built yesterday. So the idea behind spreading it out is to do the works that are that, according to the evaluators, are necessary in those years to ensure that it remains fit for use as time goes by. So for example, kitchen refurbishment might not be necessary today, but in 2025, it's their opinion that if you wish to continue to use the kitchen and it be fit for use, you'll need to do some work in 2025 to ensure that that remains available for use. And that's the idea behind it. It's about
Okay.
fit for use.
Okay. So Councillor Moore, you're proposing an amendment then? Go ahead.
Yes, please, Mayor Allen. I would like to be, I'm concerned also about the costing that of these expenditures and the costs that they've attached to some of these projects, because I don't feel that that will be the case in 3 years. So that's also why I'm asking for the amendment to have this list of improvements made over the course of next year.
So inclusion into the 2023 capital budget.
Yes, recognizing that the money has been set aside already, that the developers have provided the funds required for this improvement, it won't affect their budget.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Mott Chapman. Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have drafted an amendment, but I might need Councillor Moore's thoughts just on the last section. So that the motion now before council be amended as follows: that all the works outlined in the report for the Grenfell Hall be included in the 2023 budget, which I'm not sure if that's what she's looking for at the end of the amendment.
Capital budget.
Capital budget, just so that does it need to go into the capital budget though if the monies have already been set aside, CAO? I'm not quite sure.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Moore. I would suggest that maybe just adding to that motion and that the applicable funding be provided for, or something along those lines, because to your point, it should be identified in the budget just so that it's there, it's clear, this is the projects that need to get done. But the funding, as Councillor Moore mentioned, has already previously been approved by council through the development, or through the developer. So those funds are set aside. So it really should be a net zero impact to the existing taxpayer. Again, so the funding and so the expenditure and the appropriate funding should be.
May I suggest the expenditure and the already existing funding? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. And through you, just for clarification to Councillor Moore, are you asking that, for example, the kitchen renovation be done this year, or that it be included in the budget of the corresponding year?
My understanding, and she can clarify, is that for inclusion in the 23 budget to be completed in 2023. Is that correct, Councillor Moore?
That's correct. All the projects listed.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And just as a follow-on, so the kitchen renovation that is suggested that doesn't need to happen yet, and nor do we know about the facility usage. So we're going to renovate a kitchen that we're not sure is being utilized?
Apparently,
Councillor Moore.
Sorry. When I asked the CAO about the study itself, it wasn't based on utilization, it was based on fit for use. And so per the report, it says the kitchen will be in poor and unfit condition by 2025. I'm afraid that this costing will be double in 2025. And secondly, it's only 2 years away from going fair condition today to poor condition in 2 years. So I'm asking to have all these projects completed next year, and we don't have to go down that I'm in a poor condition phase, which we already know it's in a poor condition.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think first thing we have to keep in mind is that for the last 2 years we've had COVID, we were in lockdown, and a lot of these facilities were not being used. And you know yourself, up in the Hillsdale area in our second term, the amount of work that you did with the people up there, repainting, reflooring. Anyways, we spent $50,000, and as soon as we got it up and running, the place was being used all the time. We had the same thing at the Phelpston Rink House. It was deplorable. We put a new bathroom in, we put a new kitchen in and fixed it up. the place was being used all the time. If I go back to Hillsdale, if you go back in the records, you'll see that that place was rented out all the time. If I go back to Phelpston, it was being rented out all the time because we fixed it up. I support her endeavors, Councillor Moore. $75,000. If you've done any buildings, not a lot of money. If it'll get this thing up and running, the people will come back. They want to come back. They want to get this COVID behind us. They want to be able to use it. And that's something in that community of Brentville or Menacing or Phelpston. That's what sets us apart as a municipality. I know our neighboring municipality, some of them there, they've shut the doors. Now they're coming to our municipality to use these facilities. So if it means fixing it up, I support it 100%. Do it this year. Why are we waiting? We spread it out between this year and next year.
Okay.
And get it on the road. Thank you.
Councillor Mott Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I totally understand where Deputy Mayor Coggin is coming from, but I also have to say that we earmarked, as Councillor Moore said, that 100 grand, I believe it was, towards the Grenfell Hall. So even though the timelines is up to 2026, and we don't know if we're going to utilize that hall or not, and probably in the next couple of years, we have that money set aside just for that hall. Because so I think that we should use it as per Council Moore.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth, thank you. Please read the motion.
Through you, Mayor Allen, that the motion now before council be amended as follows: that all the works outlined in the report for the Grenfell Hall be completed in 2023, and that the funds be included in the 2023 capital budget, with the project being funded by development as previously approved by council at the January 20th, 2021 meeting.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to verbal reports, item 9.1 and 9.2, official plan update, economic development update. Director Spagnol, any updates?
Nothing new to report, Mayor Allen. Thank you.
Midhurst development update, General Manager Ramdale.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'll begin with the effluent main again. The effluent main construction is nearing the end, with the developer expecting completion in late August or early September. Along Wilson, I'd reported before that there was sinkhole damage on Wilson, which required a road closure. Last week, the road contractor moved on to site and determined that the sinkhole damage to be more than we initially thought. So working with the county, the repairs will take longer to complete than forecast. We are continuing to update the public, emergency services, and fire services regularly. As for the signals at Wilson and Snow Valley, Hydro did connect the power last Friday. And earlier today, we had a meeting to plan out the commissioning, the next steps to get it turned on. We do have a few items that we're still to confirm, and I plan to send out a note to all of council later with the activation schedule. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to send that out. As for the actual construction of the homes themselves, that is progressing with first occupancy expected in late 2022. And as a note, the trucking of the topsoil offsite is now complete. So the trucks aren't along Snow Valley any longer. Over onto the east side of Bayfield, that is neighborhood number 2. The earthworks will begin either later this week or early next week. The developer will store and reuse all of the topsoil on site. So I do not expect any truck traffic coming off of that site during this work. And that brings me to the end of the Midhurst development update. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mott Chapman, did you have your card up before?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just because Clerk Ainsworth had hers up, I was going to let you know that.
Thank you. Okay, any questions of General Manager Ramdeo on his report? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I don't know if General Manager Ramdeo can answer this, but through you to General Manager Ramdeo, two questions. Number one, with respect to our facilities, are they actively being utilized and rented out now? Is it pretty much status quo pre-COVID? That's my first question. My second one, I was curious to know whether or not there was a traffic survey or a traffic count completed at the main intersection in Elm Vale within the last couple of weeks.
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. In terms of the utilization of our, I presume you meant the community halls and likewise. Yes, they're open to the public again. They are being utilized. The utilization rate, for example, is nowhere close to pre-COVID. As of today, I'll use Grenfell as an example. As of today, the rental income, the revenues from that to the end of July is about 1/4, less than 1/4 what we used to pull in pre-COVID. So it is down. In terms of the traffic count at the main intersection in Elmville, yes, it was completed on Victoria Day weekend, and we've got that information. I will actually share it with you later.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to county updates, Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Marilyn. There was no meeting of county council.
Okay, municipal updates. Does anybody have municipal updates? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to General Manager Ramdeo. I'm going to talk about this in this 9.5 municipal updates because I didn't have the opportunity in another area, but I wanted to say thank you so much because I drove by Carson Road and Ann Street and I saw the new parking. I know you had sent me an email to say that it was completed, so I drove by to take a look at it. And there was in fact 3 cars parked in the new parking spots and no cars on the road. So I'll just say that too, which I was happy to see. And yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you for getting that done.
Thank you. Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just letting you know that the Menacing CRA is planning their Labor Day slow pitch tournament that we have not had for the last 2 years. And we have so far 24 teams. That's our cap this year. And more to come on when I have more information, but it's good to go.
Good, thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have 2 things I want to speak about. One, about the speed of the big trucks on the main street of Elmvale. I know everywhere we go, there's just they're traveling fast, but it just seems, I don't know what we can do to I'm just mentioning it to staff, whether we put some of them solar powered things up to show the speed or whatever, because there's an accident waiting to happen here. Our office is on the main street and I see it firsthand all the time. So if somebody said we're getting complaints, I would believe it. And I'm just putting it out there that eventually we're going to have to do something. My second thing, I'd like to speak. Last Sunday, we had our Phelpston horseshoe tournament, Winger Dinger. And given the fact we hadn't had it for the last 2 years, it went off pretty good. We probably could have had more people, but the weather was good and it turned out pretty good. One thing I want to comment on was late Sunday morning when I was there helping them set up, a young girl from the Parks and Rec, I think, showed up to give us garbage bags and let us know about the tables that they had brought in and left for us for people to use. And I just want to compliment a shout out to the Parks and Rec for accommodating us for our winger dinger. So thank you very much. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a reminder, once again, Springwater Elm Vale Farmers Market is running. It's really been successful this year. I've been out a number of times. There's a lot of folks popping in there and doing a bit of shopping. It runs on Fridays, 9 to 2. Something else that I noticed when I was having a coffee in town the other day is that if you want some good bakery goods, apparently the bakery in Elmville is the place to go, because there's a lineup up there on the weekend. I couldn't believe it, waiting for the doors to open. There's about 15 or 20 people in line, so they got to be making some great baked goods in there. The other thing I wanted to remind everyone about is that Music in the Park is carrying on in Elmville at the Parquette, the main intersection in Elmville of Queen and Yonge. And since there's no council meetings between now and September, I'm just going to rhyme off every Saturday, just the artists that are going to be there. They perform from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. That's 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And this Saturday, August the 6th, is Molly Fisher. On August the 13th is Jason Redman. And these are all accomplished singers and professional performers too. So it's well worth coming out and listening to them. August the 20th is Hunter Sheridan, and on August the 22nd is Jeff Gunn. And if I can just cursor down here, I'll see if there's somebody there on the long weekend in September. I can't read that one, so I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ma Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And just comment on Councillor Ritchie with the big trucks and those signs. Didn't we budget it to get some digital signs, and where is that sitting?
Okay, Director Ramigan? Or CAO Schmidt, both popped up, so flip the coin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So through you to Councillor Ma Chapman. So yes, funds were set aside in the budget, and those speed boards were obtained. And I believe my understanding was, direction was, is that they would be deployed in each of the different wards. So I would have to maybe defer to General Manager Ramdeo to understand the location of some of those speed boards as we speak today.
I was riding my bicycle today on Old 2nd South, and after about 8 kilometers, I rode towards the sign that's there facing south, and I tried to get up to 25 kilometers for it to register, and I was able to do that. So I can attest to one on Old 2nd South. General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, to all of council. Yes, they are out there. There is one in Elmville on Queen Street near to the school. I believe there's one on Finley Mill as well. So they are out there. I would say for the most part, they work. We've had some maintenance issues, but they are working. We're getting them fixed and they are working.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to General Manager Ramdeo. How do we request to have one of the boards put in a certain location?
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. There is no formal process. Make a request and we try to be, I've got one extra one as well that I can deploy as required.
I'm going to send you an email.
Sounds
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. One more thing. Are we, it's probably directed to General Manager Ramdeo. Do we have any more of those slow down signs, or are we out?
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Ma Chapman. I believe we've got about 15 left, right? Yes, I see Clerk Ainsworth shaking her head. So yes, we've got a few.
Okay, good. All right, moving on to notices of motion 10.1. At this point, I'll pass the chair to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Hope she's there. Deputy Mayor? Okay.
Mayor
Pass-
Allen, I am here, but I can only hear
Yeah.
every other word. So if you can pass the chair to another member, I think that would be best.
Okay. Who wants the chair? Councillor Moore. All right, I pass the chair to you for item 10.1.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. 10.1 notice of motion reads regarding an allocation from the Springwater Swing Funds to the Marchand family. The recommendation is to be it resolved that council approve the allocation of $1,000 from the Springwater Swing Funds to be paid to the Marchand family as they care for their son Jaden, who was critically injured in a workplace accident.
So I move that, and I believe you need to get a seconder, please.
Do I have a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor Coughlin? Do we need discussion, or can we just go ahead and vote? All those in favor? Thank you. That motion is passed.
See how easy that is, Councillor Moore? Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wanted to remind folks there is a GoFundMe page for that particular individual. And it's doing well, but it's started to stall. It hasn't quite reached its goal yet. So just
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would also add that staff got together and in an effort to get more ease of funds to them for meals, raised, I believe it's $1,000 to get some skip the dishes or something similar to that to them. And it was most appreciated. CEO Schmidt, any addition to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just confirming your comments. Yes, staff did come together and provide for a collection for Jennifer and her family of approximately $1,000 and provided that to the family last week to assist them with obtaining food. They are in Toronto and spending quite a bit of money on accommodation and food. So any little bit, definitely they're appreciative of. And again, thanks to staff and thank you to council as well for tonight's approval of the notice of motion. Most appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other notices of motion? Moving on to items of future consideration. Number 11, any items for future consideration? Then can I have a mover and seconder to approve the bylaws, please? Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie. With the bylaws listed herein, go ahead, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we approve the bylaws, I'd like to speak to item 12 on the bylaw. Is the designate, no, hold on a second, it's the school crossing. We got the report in there as a draft to approve the draft. And I got some questions on the draft. I read it a number of times and I'm just not sure. As you know, this all comes about from the Hillsdale traffic lights still having a crossing guard. And the way I read this bylaw in the draft report, there's it sort of supports having a traffic guard there because it talks about a designated pedestrian crossing, and then it talks about electronic control, which I believe we're referring to signals or traffic lights. So my question is, if we're approving this Appendix A as the draft, it sounds to me like we're confirming that we're going to maintain a crossing guard at the traffic lights in Hillsdale. And I guess I'd like somebody to answer that for me if that's what the intent is or not.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think this question would be better suited for General Manager Ramdale.
General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Hannah. The purpose of the policy is to set out the process, I suspect, or not I suspect, I know. And under that process, Hillsdale will get an automatic review of the crossing guard, the need for the crossing guard annually. That's in the policy. And actually, any location that we subsequently approve through council for a crossing guard will be automatically reviewed annually to confirm that that need still exists. So in this particular one, the crossing guard will remain immediately now. We will review once school reopens and there is a consistent pedestrian traffic through there. We will review it according to the policy. And if it does not meet the need, we will then bring that forward in accordance with what the policy says.
Okay, follow on.
Thank you. So to be quite honest with you, sir, I appreciate your response, but the way I read it, it sounds to me, or it reads to me like the crossing guard will be maintained there based on the scope and the definitions in that report. And also it appears that from that report that other locations that have traffic lights will probably be asking for, or could be asking for, and under this policy would probably end up getting a crossing guard as well. And I just see a major financial impact to our township. So I'm not sure whether anybody else that's read this bylaw has similar concerns or not.
Clerk Ainsworth?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. If I may, from the last meeting where this item was discussed, I'll read the last paragraph to the motion that was ultimately adopted by council, and it might clarify some items for Councillor Hannah. So the third paragraph was that an assessment in accordance with the draft policy be conducted at each location noted within the report and brought to council for consideration as a priority at the beginning of the 22-23 school year, with the Hillsdale location being conducted first. So the passage of the bylaw itself would not solidify any crossings. It would still be brought to council for consideration once an assessment is completed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is that the bylaw is listed herein. Councillor Cabral?
I'm sorry, Mayor Allen, I caught me a bit off guard. I know that I had concerns about the locations that were not included in the policy at the time. And I'm going to be totally honest with everybody. I did not review all of the locations in the draft policy. My question is, were those locations added? And they would be the one at George Street for an assessment and the one in front of the library for an assessment.
Clerk Ainsworth, can you address that?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I would have to defer that to General Manager Ramdale.
GM?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. The locations that you spoke of, those would be for assessment against the policy. So the policy is separate, that we're adopting this evening, or asking to adopt this evening. That is separate. The locations, we've got that as the list that we will then apply this policy to those locations. And it would be item 2 in the policy. So that outlines the criteria that we will apply to it.
Okay, thank you. So the policy is the criteria that's being applied then.
Yeah.
Thank you, I understand.
Thank you. The motion reads that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 2022-65, authorize a service agreement with Ontario Clean Water Agency, new Midhurst Water Treatment Plant and interim wastewater plant. 2022-66, amend fees and charges bylaw. 2022-005. The 2022-067 was pulled. 2022-068, amend traffic and parking bylaw, no parking Marshall Road. 2022-069, OPA 64 and OP 2022-001 BMR Pro Elm Vale. 2022-070 school crossing guard policy, and 2022-072 CUPE collective agreement. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Mover and seconder for the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Ma Chapman and Councillor Moore, that bylaw 2022-071 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on August 3rd, 2022, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? And a mover and seconder to adjourn this 3-hour meeting. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ritchie, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:20 p.m. to meet again at the regular meeting on September 7th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Have a good August.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Night.